The key thing that I do to look after myself is to have a very strict but quite unusual working schedule. So I work for 2 weeks in a row and then I have a week off. That happens all the time, regardless of how busy I am. Every third week I'll have, as best I can, completely off from work. That takes some getting used to. It's quite a tricky thing for my team to get used to when they first join the company, but it works for me, and we've been able to grow it into a way that it works for everyone else as well. So don't fall into the trap of thinking that you're busy and there's nothing you can do about it. Think creatively, think outside the box. I know not everyone's like me and has the luxury of being able to set their own hours, but you'd be surprised how flexible employers and other people in your life will be if you ask nicely. So yeah, in those weeks that I have off fairly regularly, it can be quite a struggle for me not to keep doing work, not to keep doing things that might make me stressed or might harm my mental health. So it's important for me and for anyone else to find genuine things that will occupy you and that you'll enjoy, and that will properly give you a break from the sources of stress or pressure, which is important to avoid to look after your mental health. For me, I love cooking. I have to temper that a little bit, otherwise I just end up eating all of the things that I bake and cook. Similarly, I quite enjoy home brewing beer, but again, that's a bit of a mixed blessing, because then there's a lot of beer that needs to be drunk. I'm very lucky where I live in South London. Here, where I am today in Richmond Park, is just 10 minutes from our house, and so being able to spend time in some proper nature, even though I live in South London, and being able to take Rosie for a walk. Rosie's not appearing this month, I'm afraid. It's a bit of a drizzly day. She's not so keen on that. This happens quite often. I quite often find that I've got an amount of work that seems pretty impossible and certainly fairly never-ending. For me, I think the two key pieces of advice, one is pretty obvious, I'm afraid. Break it down into small chunks. Anything, however big or complicated or unsurmountable it seems, can be broken right down into chunks that mean you've got something you can do right now. You might have finished it in the next 10 minutes, and then you can move on to the next chunk and the next chunk. Complex things just mean more chunks, but it doesn't mean that you can't break them down. And the second thing, once you've broken things down into chunks, is also to be really cutthroat in working out what priority, putting things in a priority order. Again, in just the same way that everything can be broken down into small chunks, ultimately everything can be put into a priority order. There might be lots of things that seem like they all need to be done right now, but if you're honest with yourself and with colleagues or other people that are wanting you to get things done, one way or another, one thing will need to be done the most urgently, and then the next thing and the next thing. Sometimes they can be difficult conversations. Again, I do get that I'm coming at this from a position where there's not as many people in my work life that say no when I decide what things need to be done first, and that can be a lot harder when you're more junior in an organisation. But the same can be true in all sorts of circumstances, and often the key is communicating that clearly, explaining to people that are demanding lots of different things from you, and just saying, look, I'm just one person, I can only do one thing at a time. I need you to help me work out which thing you need first, and then the sooner we've decided what that is, the sooner I can get on with doing that thing, and then the next thing, and then the next. So when you're faced with something that feels insurmountable, break it down as much as you can, and then be honest with the people that you're working with about what needs to be done in what order. This is a delicate one, and I don't think there's an answer that one size fits all with this. It depends a huge amount on you and on the people that you work with. One thing I would say is that for me, a key characteristic of any good manager, whatever the role, whatever the organisation, a key characteristic of a good manager is someone who listens and who can be spoken to in confidence. So I would hope that you always feel able to speak to a superior at work, absolutely, about any work issues. And really, we should all be working in a situation where we can talk to our boss about personal issues as well, because they do affect us as people, and at the end of the day, people at work are still people. So I think line managers, you should be able to always trust them with things that you need to talk to them about. I know that sometimes that's not the case. Not everyone is a great line manager. Sometimes there are other people senior in an organisation that you can talk to, and ultimately, if you're struggling to work for a line manager who isn't very good at line managing, if we're being honest about that, then that is a really sensible, really good reason to look at moving to work somewhere else. I'm not advocating that everyone goes out and changes their job today. Struggling to work for the person you're working for is a good reason to think about making the next step to a new role. In terms of colleagues more generally, I think it is a tricky question. I don't have a clear answer to it. There's all sorts of things that come into play. There's the blurred boundaries of being friends with people you work with. Different people feel differently about that. Some people love to have friendships and personal relationships with the people that they work with. Other people prefer to be very compartmentalised and to keep their colleagues and their friendships very separate. I think, as with any relationship in life, I think it's important that you're realistic and pragmatic. You go into a relationship with your eyes open about how well you can trust people. And I think perhaps in a work context, it's better to err on the side of caution. If you've got a colleague that you're not 100% confident in their ability to keep what you want to talk to them about confidential or private, or just to treat it sensitively, maybe try and talk to a friend outside of work in the first instance, because those work relationships can be harder to navigate when things don't work out as you want. For me, one of the most effective things is to take a break. That's why I work in the way that I do. That's why I have a good block of genuine time off very frequently. And that's true as well at a much smaller scale. If I'm getting really frustrated with something in the moment that I just can't make work, that's the time for me to get up from my desk. For you working on the front line of early years, that might be the time to say to a colleague, I just need 5 minutes to go and make a hot drink for a minute and just to step away from a situation. Even that small amount of distance and being able to look from the outside in at the problem that's been winding you up can be remarkably effective. It's very difficult to see the wood for the trees sometimes when you're in the midst of a frustrating situation. For me personally, I find music really effective. I find that music has a very direct effect on my mood. If I am feeling lethargic, if I'm a bit worn down and not really being able to get myself in gear to get the work that I need to do done, putting on some upbeat music that gives me that feeling in there that gets me going, gets me motivated, can be really helpful. And just the same, if I've find myself getting overexcited about something, trying to go 100 miles an hour and feeling like I need to slow down to avoid making mistakes, playing some more calming music while I'm working can help as well. That's not necessarily something that is as easy to implement when you're not sat behind a desk with headphones on like me, but from my own time in practice, I think the effect of music on people's moods is the most substantial on young children, and I'm a big advocate of having a speaker in your room, in your setting, and using music to help to adjust the mood of the children. So if you're caught on a day like this, which has become a pretty rainy day as I stand here, everyone's cooped up, getting a bit overexcited, you've got a bit of a headache, everything's just building up and you're feeling really crap, having the option to just put on some music, put it on loud enough that the children can actually hear it, and you'll find often that they'll start to lower their voices so that they can hear the music in the background, and it can be remarkably effective at lowering the temperature of a whole setting. And so that's my top tip for this week. I will be back later in the month with a new article, and I'll be back to answer some more of your questions later in the spring.